All right, good afternoon, everybody. Thanks for joining me. We'll go ahead and get started here. So, post your questions there on the right hand side. You'll see where it says chat with Top Speed Golf Instructors. You just post your question right there, press send, and it'll show up on here, and then I'll take them in order. It should be on the right hand part of the screen. If you're on a mobile device, it may be below the video there. So, keep that in mind, but we'll go ahead and get started here. And as I mentioned in my little note on here, I take questions up to an hour before. So, if you have a question over the weekend or something like that, if you post it on there on like Saturday or Sunday, most likely it's not going to get answered. So just save that for Monday. And we always kick off at 3 p.m. On Wednesdays, barring any unforeseen circumstances, obviously. But so at 2 p.m. Eastern, you can start posting your questions on there. So it looks like that's what Richard did here. Richard S. said, I just had an aha moment. Actually, let me blow this up so I'm not squinting the whole time. There we go. So Richard S. said, I just had an aha moment watching Clay explain the club is behind you in the vault. For years, I've been told to keep the club in front of me, which, by the way, never felt correct. But I assume all those teachers of golf can't be wrong. Clay mentions in the lesson that attempting to get the club in front of you will cause you to become steep in the downswing. I wonder how others have the same idea. So one thing to keep in mind here is that feel isn't always real, right? So you may feel like the club is in front of you or behind you, but the reality may be something else. So for someone who's getting stuck all the time, where they're coming in and they're coming down like this, and the club's way, way back, and their elbows kind of back behind them, and things like that, the feeling of having the club in front of them may be a good feeling for them to have because it helps them to get the club more where it should be. Whereas someone who's way coming over the top like this and chopping down into the ball, the club's in front of them like that, way too far in front of them. A feeling of the club being way behind them like this may help because it may actually get them to get the club in that right area. So a lot of it's really, really just perception based on feel, adjusting your feel to get the desired result that you want. In reality, though, the club, when we're coming down, that club is not in front of us. Our body is here and that club is here. It's not in front of us. As we are rotating into contact, it's still not in front of us because the club is right here and what's in front of us is out here, right? So it's really not in front of us until we get in that straight line release, position where everything's now in front of us. The ball, the club, the ball is kind of firing through the air. Our arms are in front of us, the hips, everything's all nice out in front, and then everything gets taken over by that time. So that's really what's going on there. So I think you may hear different things from different instructors because they're trying to help you feel a certain thing. What in their definition of in front of you may be different than what our definition is. I'm talking about, when I say in front of you, I'm talking about the hips. So at contact here, we don't want the ball and everything to be directly in front of us because that would mean that we're flipping as we're coming into contact. We want our hips to be out in front and the club kind of being a little bit in the arms and everything being a little bit behind us. It's almost like when you're bowling. You're bowling, it's along your right side there if you're a right-handed bowler. If you were to toss something, you would toss it like that, right? You wouldn't toss it like that. You would toss it, you would open up your body and toss it out like that. So that's what we want to do. That's basically what we basically say. And a lot of times, some instructors are definitely saying the wrong things. Maybe their idea of it is wrong or something like that. Some instructors, they just have different definitions for these certain things. They have different definitions for where the club is in relationship to the body. They have different relationships or definitions for what deems as in front or behind or something like that. So it's not necessarily that they're wrong. It's just they're maybe explaining it in a little bit different way. All right. So David F. says your recent responses to head movement questions have been helpful in practicing the shoulder turn drill. I do well with my shoulder rotation, but have trouble getting my body over my forward foot at contact and not standing up too soon. What additional advice would you have to complete the shoulder turn and finish? You got to make sure that you're getting a proper weight shift. It starts with that. That's where I would start, making sure that you're getting that proper momentum shift to your lead side. If you are hanging back, basically if you're coming through contact and you're kind of on your back foot here and you're not getting that momentum transferring to your lead side, you're going to all but finish on your back foot every single time. This is pretty common. See it quite a bit in amateur golfers. So it starts with getting that good weight shift. The best drill, and I've mentioned this in a lot of office hours. I think David F., I think you've been a frequenter of these office hours. You've been on these quite a bit. You've probably heard me talk about this drill. It's the step drill. I think I mentioned it in every single office hours, and I'm sure I will every single time, because this is something people struggle with, is the weight shift. And it's pretty important in the golf swing. So I would recommend the weight shift drills, particularly, excuse me, I got a really bad itch on my foot. And particularly the drill that's called the step drill. It's a really, really good drill. It's found in numerous videos on the website, actually. One that I think would be really good for you would be how to start the downswing. If you go to that video, and if you just search the word downswing in the upper right-hand corner, there's a search window there. If you just search the word downswing, you can find the video. But the video goes over how to start the downswing. It goes over the step drill in there as well and how to perform that. And basically what you're doing in the step drill is you're just starting with your feet together. So normally you'd have your feet, shoulder width apart or something like that, however wide your stance is. But in this drill, you bring your feet together, and as soon as you start that backswing, you are stepping forward, and that's helping you to that's forcing you to get your momentum to move forward. And it's helping you get the feeling of what you should be doing. So highly recommend that video. If you just search the word downswing, you'll find the video. I believe it's the 4th video down. It's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. It says how to start the downswing there. Click on that one. Clay goes over that as well. If you want kind of a comprehensive course to kind of work on this, what's really, really good for getting loaded up properly and getting a proper weight shift is the stop chunking and topping course. Because really the biggest reason why you chunk and top is because you're not getting a proper weight shift. Because what happens is that when we don't shift our weight properly and we hang back, the low point of our club ends up being before the golf ball. And what I mean by that is this club comes down, it reaches a low point in the arc. It's moving on an arc like this. It reaches a low point, and then it goes back up. Well, when you hang back in the swing, you don't get a proper weight shift. You kind of hang back like that. That low point ends up happening before the golf ball. And when you chunk it, that's when you hit the ground, and the low point is before the golf ball. And when you top it, it's when you miss the ground and the club comes up and hits the top of the golf ball. So that stop chunking and topping course is also a very good one to help you get really loaded up and to help you get a good weight shift to your lead side. The step drill is also in that video or in that course if you want to check that out. To get to that course, all you got to do is click on the house icon. That's going to take you to the home page. So at the top of the page there's a little house icon. If you click that, that's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down the home page, you'll see all the courses that we offer on the website. About halfway down, you'll see that stop chunking and topping course. Click on that to get started on some of them drills. Excuse me. So Dennis B says, do you have any instruction for single digit handicap players? Really all, the Top Speed Golf system, it's intended for all ability levels, really. Whether you're a beginner, low handicap, middle handicap, high handicap, it's really intended for all those. The only people the Top Speed Golf system really isn't for are maybe, scratch and plus handicap players who are already nailing all of the pieces of the Top Speed Golf system, or someone who's a total beginner who doesn't know how to grip the club yet, doesn't know how to set up properly. Those people need to just work on getting the proper grip, posture, setup, and just hitting the ball in general and just learning how to play a little bit. But other than that, Tatsuki Golf system is intended for all ability levels. Now, if you are someone who is nailing every single piece, like you go through the Tatsuki Golf system and you see you are nailing every single piece of it, then I would recommend going to the move and making sure that you're nailing that piece of it. And the move is shallowing out the club, getting the club face to square earlier. Really, if you're releasing the club out in front, most likely you're doing the move, especially if you're a scratch player. So odds are you're going to be doing that already. Speed is definitely a thing that I would recommend doing, or doing our 20-minute distance fix. That, again, is meant for all ability levels, even very, very low handicap players, or scratch or plus handicap players, tour players. About anybody can do well from that. The only people that is not for are people that, again, total beginners, I would say, or people that really just are hitting it off the planet. They're not hitting it anywhere close to the fairway, where they're basically never hitting the fairway. Huge slice, huge snap hooks. Those people need to fix their ball flight first. So go through the never slice again course, never hook again course, chunking, topping, whatever the big piece that may be that's causing you to not hit the fairway or be anywhere near it. That's what you may want to do, and work on that, and then do the 20-minute distance fix. But that's a great course. Our ball striking masterclass that we offer every 1 or 2 months is also a good course to work on. Again, intended for all ability levels, even tour players. The only players I would say it wouldn't be for is a total beginner. But that's working on your skill. That's working on being able to work the ball, fades, draws. And sure, maybe you can fade it and draw it, but being able to really get that skill down to where you can improve it. You can improve all of it. You can. That's the thing about golf, is that you're never going to be too good at it, right? So everything that we do, especially in the ball striking masterclass, is something you can make more difficult so that you can get more out of it. So we do offer all those things. We'll be probably offering the ball striking masterclass sometime this month. I'm not sure exactly when. But be on the lookout in your email for an opportunity to sign up for that. We only open it up every month or two. It is an additional course that we offer. There's a fee associated with it. It's $147 one-time fee to take the course. It is an online course, a lot like the Tatsuki Golf system. You do get a Facebook group that comes along with it, where you can post your swings and ask questions from myself and get feedback. So that's an added bonus with it as well. So highly recommend the course. Be on the lookout in your email. And if you have any questions about what the ball striking masterclass is all about, don't hesitate to ask. I'll be happy to help. All right. So Terry B says, I had an injury in my left knee in high school decades ago. It hurt my left side during my right-handed swing. I now have a new knee, and no pain. Awesome. That's good to hear. But I continue to struggle with my weight transfer and getting on my front side. Got any drills to help with this? So, Terry, hopefully you were here for my answer for, I believe it's Dennis F. It's the same answer for you, man. You're going to want to work on that step drill. So, again, you can search the word downswing, and you can find that video that I like where Clay goes over the step drill. The video is called How to Start the Downswing. If you search downswing on the website, you'll be able to find the video. I believe it's the 4th video down when you just search downswing, and it's just called How to Start the Downswing. It's got some yellow lettering in the thumbnail. Again, that step drill is going to be really good for you, and also the stop chunking and topping course. So that course is going to be all about you getting loaded up properly and you getting a proper weight transfer. Sometimes a weight transfer is also an issue of not getting fully loaded up properly in the backswing. If you don't load up, or if you have some sort of kind of reverse type of weight shift, so meaning if I'm in the backswing here and I'm not loading up, so this is typically what we see with people who are maybe new members, setting up very, very vertical with the spine. So what I mean by that is I'm setting up to the ball here, and I'm kind of like this. So if you look at the center of my hips, center of my shoulders, I'm pretty much straight up and down. We like to see you a little bit angled away. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, it helps you to get loaded up and to stay behind the golf ball a little bit in the backswing. Because if you're like this, you're going to tend to want to kind of load forward. If you're angled away, you're going to load on your trail foot, which is what you want to do initially. The other thing that's going to do is it's going to make it easier to get into an angled away position at the top of the swing. So I'm going to be in the angled away position at the top of the swing. It's going to make it easier for me to swing from the inside. If I'm leaning toward the target, I'm going to tend to want to do this. I'm going to tend to want to come over the top. So it creates that space. So that going through that course, if you are someone who's not getting loaded up properly, someone who's doing this action in the backswing, leaning toward the target, and you're getting weight on your trail foot, when that happens, it's going to be hard to shift my weight to that lead foot. I'm typically going to do this in the backswing. I'm going to fall backwards. So working through that course can help as well. To get to that course, if you click on the house icon at the top of the page, it's a little tiny house. That's going to take you to the home page. If you scroll down on the home page, you'll see all the courses on the website. Start that stop chunking and topping course to get loaded up properly and to get a good weight shift. All right. So Ken J says, how do you properly release a bowed left wrist? Is the palm facing the sky or facing away from your body? Your palm. Well, if you're coming down into contact, so now I'm bowing my lead wrist here. I'm coming down into contact. So let me angle this down a little bit. So now I've bowed my wrist. I'm coming down into contact here. And I got forward shaft lean. I got a square club face. My wrist is slightly bowed here at contact. It's already sometimes it's kind of already released a little bit to this point, which is fine. Depends on how much bow you have initially. But the only thing that really matters is that face at contact there. So square club face, forward shaft lean. And then after contact, what happens is our hands start to roll over just a little bit. So typically you're going to see it's going to go about 45 degrees rolled over. It can be a little bit different. Some people have more of a squared release where they don't really roll the hands over. Someone like a Jordan Spieth, a Lee Westwood, someone like that, that is completely fine. Nothing wrong with that. Brooks Koepka, another guy, has kind of a squared release as he's coming through there. Some people roll it over a little bit harder. The hand's really coming over the top, kind of like that. So they're at contact here, and then through contact, it really kind of goes like that. Someone like Phil Mickelson, Rory McIlroy, these kinds of guys are really rolling the hands over quite a bit. That's completely fine as well. But basically what's releasing it is the wrist is kind of doing this. So I'm coming down into contact. Here I am at contact. A little bit of bow in my lead wrist. I have a square club face, forward shaft lean. And the appearance of the bow is really going to depend on how strong or weak your grip is. I'll go in that here in a second. But basically, if I'm coming into contact, I'm somewhere like in this position. I roll over to there. My hand kind of does more of this. So my thumb points more out away from me. And then after I get to that straight line release position, my trail hand kind of takes over, and then it kind of points up to the sky as I come now I'm kind of pointing up to the sky as I come all the way around into a full finish. So that's basically how that's releasing. You're not getting in this bowed wrist here and then holding it all the way through. You got to let that trail hand, once you get in that release position, let that trail hand continue to take over as you come all the way around to the full finish. Now, like I said, going back to that strong grip, weak grip. So let me show you something here. If I have, I'll zoom in so you can kind of see it really well. So if you look here, this would be considered, I would consider this to be a pretty weak grip. So my thumb is going straight down the shaft here. And what I mean by weak, I don't mean I'm holding the club really weakly. I mean, this is how my hand is positioned on the club. So this would be really weak. That would be really strong. That's what I mean by weak strong. So that's kind of like the counterclockwise or clockwise movement of the head or of the hand on the shaft. So if the thumb's kind of running straight down the shaft, and if you look here, I've got this crease between my thumb here and my hand, this crease right here. If that's kind of pointing straight up to your chin, I would consider that to be a pretty weak grip. So if I come into contact and I have a square club face and forward shaft lean, look at how bowed my wrist looks. It looks very, very bowed. Well, that's what I have to do to get that club face squared up with forward shaft lean because I have a weak grip. Now, if I have more of a neutral grip, so that's the grip that I pretty much use normally, that would be a grip where if you look at my crease here that I created, again, that's kind of pointed up toward, somewhere between my shoulder here, and I pointed straight up into here. That, if I come into contact with forward shaft lean and a square club face, now you look, my wrist appears pretty flat. I don't have any, it doesn't look like I have any bowing, but I'm in the same position at impact with my face. Same amount of forward shaft lean, same square face. Now you can't really see that, but just trust me, it's square and I have forward shaft lean, you can see that. Now let's say I had a really strong grip. So I come down here and you can see the V on my hands pointing outside of my shoulder. So this is a very, very strong grip. If I come into contact, forward shaft lean, square club face, now look at my wrist. My wrist actually looks like it has a little bit of cupping in it. The wrist looks like it's kind of going that way, as you can see. It's a little bit hard to tell with my wristwatch on here. Let me take this off. So again, really, really strong grip. If I come into contact, square club face, forward shaft lean, you can see it looks like I actually have just a little bit of cupping there. And the reality is that I have a square club face and forward shaft lean at contact. Now, if I had a cupped wrist with a weak grip, if I came in, cupped wrist, here's that same kind of cupped wrist. Look, I don't have any forward shaft lean. My shaft's pretty much straight up and down. So sometimes the appearance of that lead wrist at contact will depend on how strong or weak you are at address. If you have a really strong grip, it's going to appear to be probably a little bit more cupped than what it would be had you have a really weak grip. It's going to appear to be pretty bowed. If you have a fairly neutral grip, it's most likely going to appear to be pretty flat. So keep that in mind whenever you're looking at your swing on camera. All right, so Roland B says, what exercises and how much should you practice to increase club head speed? Mine is in the mid-60s. Roland, you're in the right place for that. Our 20-minute distance fix it's a course that tells you exactly what you need to do. So that's going to be, it's a few times a week. Basically, our 20-minute distance fix course consists of 3 sessions per week. There's going to be 2 where you go out to the range, and there's going to be 1 that you do at home. And there's also going to be some content that you watch at home as well. So those are just going to be kind of like podcasts and things like that, just kind of reinforcing and helping you understand where distance comes from and all that good stuff. So that's what I recommend you go do and to work on that. As long as you can swing as hard as you can, that's what you should work on to work on that. Now, if you can't swing as hard as you can, if that's something that you can't do, then I would just recommend working through our power turns course, making sure that you're getting the biggest range of motion that you can. So that's the power turn course is about getting a really nice and good shoulder turn. So getting a big shoulder turn and coming around to a nice full finish. That's what that course is all about. And then also working on your lag. If you are casting the club, if you look in the downswing and you are doing this, then I would recommend working on your lag. And I would do those in that order. I would do shoulder turn first, make sure that you're maxed out to get as good a shoulder turn as you can get, and then work on the lag. And the reason why I say that is, you may look at your swing, you may think, well, my shoulder turn's okay, but I'm casting the crap out of the club. You may look at your swing and do that, but I would actually recommend try to get more turn first. One, it's going to be a lot easier. It's much, much easier to make a bigger turn than it is to fix casting. Much, much easier. The other thing is that when you get a bigger turn, it's easier to generate lag. So that's what I'd highly recommend doing both of those things. But hey, if you can swing as hard as you can for 5 swings or so in a row, then I would highly recommend that 20-minute distance fix. That's going to be a really, really great course for you to get your club head speed up. You are going to work on lag in that course. You're going to work on your shoulder turn in that course as well. But that the way it's set up and everything is going to be really, really good for you. So one, to get to any of those courses, you can click on the house icon. When you click on the house icon, that's going to take you to the home page. And that house icon is just at the top of the page. It just looks like a little tiny house. When you scroll down on that home page, you'll see the 20-minute distance fix is at the top or close to the top there if it's not at the top. Below that, you'll see the power turn course and the top speed lag course. So if you can swing as hard as you can, do the 20-minute distance fixed course. If you are physically capable of doing that. If you're not, then work on the power turn course first, then go to the lag course and start working through there. So Roland, hopefully that helps with your club head speed. You can start getting it up there a little bit better. All right, so Ed D says, I played Saturday and started well, birdieing number 1 and striping my drive number 2. However, I scolded a wedge OB. Things started falling apart. What advice do you have for on-course adjustments when your swing feels completely out of sync and you start hitting tops, slices with driver, pulls with irons, etc.? Seemed like the more I just tried to execute the top speed golf fundamentals, the worse I got. When you're out on the course, focus on contact. Really, really focus on making really, really good solid contact. So what that would mean would be hitting it on the center of the club face, getting ball first contact, hitting it with a square club face, hitting it with an on-plane swing. When you're working on technique and things like that, you want to do that separate from the golf course. Now, if you're on the golf course and you're thinking about a certain technique and it's helping you hit the golf ball and you're in the zone, you're doing good, your striking is good. But if you're in a situation where it sounds like, some of the technique and stuff is probably there pretty good. It's just a matter that your skill level with it isn't that great. So focusing on just making good solid contact, hitting it in the center of the face, because most likely you're gonna notice a trend of what's going on. So it sounds like you were pulling shots and hitting slices. That is a product of a path that is too much out to in. So you're probably swinging too much out to in. Probably a lot of upper body in your swing. So working on the never slice again course can help you to avoid that in the future. But when you're out on the course, I would try to feel like you're swinging more into out, more in this direction, and making solid contact with the ball when you're doing that. So that's what I'd recommend. Really, really focus on what's happening at impact, because that's the thing that matters the most, and you'll start hitting much better shots. If you are struggling and then you're out there thinking, well, I really need to make sure that my spine is dead still. Well, you're thinking internally, you're thinking about what a part of your body is. Well, you're not hitting the ball with a stable and fluid spine. You're hitting the ball with the club. You need to focus on what the club is doing when you're out there on the course. Now, when you're practicing technique, when out on the range, yes, you want to focus on this, on what's going on there, getting that ingrained, and the striking will come along with it. But when you're out on the course, you really want to focus on the strike of the ball, and it will help you out a lot more. All right, so go ahead and get your questions on here. Looks like we have a couple more questions. I'll be on here till 4 Eastern time. So we got another half hour. I'm probably not going to be able to stretch these 2 questions into 30 minutes. I can try, but if you got more questions, go ahead and post them on there. So Nicholas Diaz says, I have a beginner intermediate clubs bought some years ago. Is there a way to determine if the basic sets I have are reasonable for me without going to a club fitter? How important is club fitting for mid-high handicap player? That's a good question. I'm someone who falls in the lines of where I think club fitting to a certain extent is important. And I also think that it really doesn't matter that much. Because honestly, if Dustin Johnson walked off the street right now, got out of his car, grabbed your clubs, he could probably go and shoot a 66. So it's more about what you do with the clubs versus what the clubs actually do. Now, getting a good club fitting can help you to be a little bit more comfortable. I've had several club fittings, and I will tell you that it has made absolutely zero difference in how well I play. It really hasn't. Now, it could be that I'm pretty much an average height person. I'm 5'11", and I'm maybe just slightly above average, but I have longer arms. So pretty much standard clubs fit me for the most part. But the only thing that I've really noticed any difference that I've gotten fitted for is my putter. So getting fitted for a putter, I think, is important because It really helps you to be able to see the line. If you can't see the line with your putter, then it may be time to get a putter fitting. A driver fitting would be more important to me as well, because it's going to maximize everything for you if you go and get your driver fit. Now, it's not going to make a huge difference. Like I said, I went from had a driver is probably a little bit too heavy for me. The shaft, the head weight was probably a little bit off for me. The shaft profile was a little bit off for me. So I got a new driver, and I was able to pick up about 3 miles per hour club head speed instantly, just like that. Well, I mean, that's basically 7 or so yards. That's not a ton, but it definitely makes a difference. But no huge change in my game. I would say that unless you're someone who's very, very tall using standard clubs, so if you're someone who the clubs are just too short for you, unless it's just one extreme of club fitting to the other, I would say club fitting is probably not going to make a huge difference for you. As long as you're using somewhat quality clubs from a quality manufacturer, so someone like Ping, Titleist, TaylorMade, Callaway, Wilson Staff, Mizuno. I mean, you can Bridgestone. You can go on and on about all the great quality club manufacturers out there. As long as you have a quality set of clubs. I played the same irons for, let's see here. I just got basically all new clubs. I got all new Pings. Pretty much every club that I had in my bag up until then was 10 years old or more. So, I mean, once you get some clubs, once you get some quality clubs, you're pretty much set for a while, unless the clubs break, right? So, as far as I'm concerned, it really just depends. I mean, the only way to really know is to get on a launch monitor and hit a lot of shots. Hit shots with your clubs versus the new clubs. If you see a huge difference, then maybe that is definitely an indication that can help you. But in my experience, I've hit some irons. They may feel a little bit better. They might be a little bit more forgiving. But the technology and stuff is that they've been able to do. They put such restrictions on things that it's not a huge difference from what it was 5 years ago, in my opinion. So, and I'm not an expert on this, but I'm just saying it's way, 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 way more about what you do with the club than what the club does. And you can also adapt to your club. That's the other thing too, is that let's say you start hitting a shot, you get some new clubs, for example, and you start hitting it right all the time. Well, you're going to adjust. You're going to adapt. You're going to change your swing a little bit to be able to straighten that out. Well, that's not the club's fault. That's your fault, because you're the one who's wielding the club and making it do certain things. Now, if there's certain things that you cannot control, you can't get figured out, and getting a new club can help you to make that better, then that's great. For instance, when I got a driver with a little lighter shaft, it enabled me to swing it about 3 miles per hour faster. That's not something that I'm going to adapt to. That's something that instantly I got out of it. So you just kind of have to look at it that way. Getting new clubs, it's not magic, but in some cases it can help out a lot. But in most cases, it doesn't really make that huge of a difference. All right. So James Arden, go ahead and get your questions on here. Like I said, I'll be on here till 4 o'clock Eastern time. So James R says, I find that when I do forward press to start the backswing, I get better shaft lean at address. And I think he meant impact. Yep. But does that make the backswing look a little bit? But that does make the backswing look a little more to the inside. Is this a real issue, or just go with it? The only thing that matters is what's going on at contact. So, if you set up with more forward shaft lean, and that allows you to get more forward shaft lean at impact without really sacrificing anything else, then I say that they just go with it. That's great. If you bring the club a little bit more inside, whoop-de-doo, who cares? It only matters what's going on at contact. So all things equal, if you're getting more forward shaft lean with the same amount of speed, you're able to control your face and your path and hit in the center of the face, all things that you're equal otherwise, then you're in good shape with what you're doing. Just because you bring the club inside doesn't mean that that's necessarily bad. Look at JB Holmes' swing. He's the guy who brings it way inside. If you look at JB Holmes, look at it down line view. He brings that club way, way back in here. That's not always a bad thing. You got to look at what's going on at contact and work out from that. So if there's issues going on at contact, then you got to look at the piece of technique that may be going on that will be causing that. The pieces of technique that cause issues is most likely, going to be something in the Tatsumi system. So it's most likely because maybe you're having trouble because your spine is off. Maybe you're having trouble at contact because you're not getting a good shoulder turn. You're not getting lag. You're not releasing the club out in front. You're bumping your hips out and flipping. There's all kinds of things that you could be doing. Most likely it's a technique that's going on in the Tatsumi system that's going to be able to help you with that. So not something that I would worry about. If you're getting better results at contact, impact's the only thing that matters. So if you made an adjustment and it made your impact better, then I would stick with that. All right. So, yeah, go ahead and get your questions on here, and we'll get them answered. Like I said, I'll be on here till 4 p.m. Eastern time. So if not, you just kind of get to stare at me for another 20 minutes or so. I'll check my email and stuff like that if you guys don't have any questions. Any questions about 20-minute distance fix, Tatsumi golf system, the move course, any of the courses in the Tatsumi golf system, anything like that? All right, so looks like we got a question here. So let me get back to my screen. There we go. Don N says, I'm changing my feel for center of the club ball strike. Currently, I'm aiming the shaft 1 full inch away from the ball and get good contact. How long should I expect to have to focus on striking that far off the ball? So I'm not sure if you're saying that you are setting up off the ball or not. So it sounds like you're saying that you're setting up an inch off the ball like this or something like that, or off the center. I would actually not recommend doing that. The reason is that you're going to typically adapt. So let's say that you're striking the ball here, or you were setting up in the center, but you were striking the ball here on the heel. So you decided, all right, well, I'm going to set up on the toe, and I'm going to start striking it. And it's going to move it to the center. Now, that initially, usually that works a little bit, but then eventually you adapt and you just start doing it here. And a lot of times it doesn't work at all. Because subconsciously, we see that ball, it's on the toe, and we feel we got to reach more for that ball, and you'll end up hitting it on the heel anyway. So what I would recommend doing is actually recommend lining it up on the center of the club face or where you normally would, and then intentionally try to strike it on the toe. And you have to keep doing that until you are trying to strike it on the toe, and then you actually start striking on the toe. Once you start striking it on the toe, then that essentially means that you're calibrated. You're doing what you're trying to do. And then you can go back to trying to strike it on the center of the face, and most likely you'll be hitting it in the center of the face again. I wouldn't change anything like this. So what you're going on, how you're setting up the ball. Set up to the ball the same way every time and adjust your feel to where you're striking it on the club face. Because most likely what's going to happen, like I said, if you line it up on any other part of the face than normal, then what will happen is you will adapt, and you'll just end up striking off the heel. And then once you do that, once you're lining it off the toe, then what are you going to do? You're going to line it up out here. The cycle never ends. You're going to end up having the ball way, way out here and reaching way for it. So I recommend lining it up on the center of the face as you normally would, and then adjusting your feel to striking it off the toe or off the heel or whatever you need to do. So if you're trying to strike it in the center of the face and you're actually striking it off the heel, you'll line it up in the center of the face like you normally would, and then try to strike it off the toe. That will most likely move it more toward the center of the face. If you're still in the heel, then exaggerate it even more. You line up the way you normally would and actually try to exaggerate it even more, because you probably just didn't adjust well enough. I know it seems off because you're like intentionally trying to hit a poor shot, but the reality is that that's most likely not going to happen. You're going to end up hitting it more in the center of the face. Now, if you actually do strike it on the toe, then ease off of that feeling. Once you do that, then once you ease off of that feeling, then you can get it more in the center of the face. And then once you get to where you're actually accomplishing what you're trying to do, then you're essentially calibrated at that point, and you can try to start striking in the center of the face again. That, however long that takes, that could take one round. That could take a few holes. It could take a couple shots. It could take weeks. It could take months. It could take a year. It just depends. So, however long it takes, once you get to where you're calibrated, then you can go back to doing what you're doing before. So Bud N says, what is your warm-up routine? So typically what I like to do is I like to hit the range for 20, 30 minutes, if possible. I like to hit a couple chips, hit a couple bunker shots, then roll a few putts. For the most part, that's what I like to do. Now, as far as what I do once I get to the range, I like to kind of do some toe touches. Or try to touch my toes anyway. I can't quite touch my toes anymore, but I try to do some toe touches. So I grab the club, try to do some toe touches, get the hamstrings and things loosened up. I can do a few squats a little bit to get the legs warmed up. I like to do some trunk twists, doing some of those. Once I get comfortable with that, I'll start doing some arm swings, get some of those. And then I'll start just swinging the club back and forth, getting loose, swinging the club back and forth. And then I'll start with some wedges. I'll hit some 50% wedges. Then I'll hit some 75% wedges. Then I'll hit some full swing wedges. Depending on how much time I have, I might hit 2 of each or 5 or 10 of each. If I have a ton of time to warm up, I might take more time and hit more wedge shots. But if not, I might just hit 2. Just depends on how much time. And then I'll grab like a middle iron or mid to low iron, so something like a 7 or 8 iron. Hit a few of those. And I'll probably try to hit some draws and some fades. When I'm hitting my wedges, I'll try to hit some high and some low, some spinny ones even. I'll just try to hit some different shots, feel comfortable with my game, comfortable with my ground contact. And then once I get up into the irons, like I said, I'll try to hit some draws, some fades, some straight shots, maybe try to hit some high and low ones as well. Then I get upper iron, try an upper iron, like a 4 or 5 iron, hit a couple of those, same thing. If I'm really off on things, I may just be trying to make solid contact. Like if I start trying to hit fades and I'm just hitting everything off the heel or off the toe, then my focus is just hitting solid contact. So it really just depends on where I'm at with my game. If I'm kind of in the groove and I'm feeling good and I'm hitting draws and fades and things like that, I'll work my way through the bag just doing that. But if I'm struggling with, maybe I'm chunking things or I'm thinning things or things like that, I may focus on whatever piece of contact I need to work that out, just so I'm actually hitting it solid before I go out there. And then hopefully once that gets better, I can start getting better feel for the draws and fades. So it really depends on how I'm feeling, but I'll just work my way up through the bag. So I'll go from that to maybe a couple high reds, a couple 3-woods, and then a few drivers. Then I like to go over to the practice green for chipping. I'll hit a few bump and runs. I'll try to hit a couple spinny chips with the wedges from a couple different lies. Hit one from the fairway, hit one from the fringe, hit one from the rough. Maybe try to give myself a bad lie in the rough and try to hit a few out of there. Try to get a good feel for it. Then I'll hit a couple sand bunker shots. I'll probably hit a long one and a shorter one, more of a green side. Maybe it's just off the green. Try to hit a couple of those. If you don't have access to those things, then you just can't do those things. It's just the way it is. So I know some places, a lot of municipals and stuff like that, you're not going to be able to go to the range and then go to the practice green and then go to all those things. You just make do with what you got. If you don't have any of that stuff, then you just kind of do the toe touches and the things, and you step up to the tee and go. A lot of times, if I'm playing situations like that, playing with buddies, we do a breakfast ball. You get 2 balls off the tee or something like that. But after I've done that, gone to the chipping green, then I'll go over to the putting green. I'll try to find like a 5-foot dead straight putt, and I'll putt a few of those. just to kind of get a good feel for the stroke. Then I'll go out to 8 feet and put a few of those. And then I'll go beyond that, 10, 12. Then I'll try a couple of really long ones to get a feel for lag. But then once that, I'm good to go. After that, that would be like what I would have done for like a college tournament. That's like showing up an hour early, hour and a half early, and going through, getting all the warm up and everything done. If people are talking to me, it would definitely take probably an hour and a half to do all that. But if you just go out there, shoot 45 minutes, it'd be pretty quick to do all of that for the most part, and to get a really good warm up in. If I only have like 20, 30 minutes, I might hit a few balls on the range. I might hit some wedges, and then I might skip to the upper iron, and then I might hit the driver, and then I might skip the chipping and putting, and just roll a few putts to get a feel for the greens, and then I'll go to the first tee. So it really just depends how much time you have. But I always do kind of the trunk twists and all of that beforehand. Try to do some dynamic type things just to get your body moving a little bit. But other than that, that's pretty much all I do. So Don M says, I set up the ball centered. My adjustment takes aiming 1 inch away from the ball to make good contact. Yeah. So you have to keep doing that until you're calibrated, Don. So like I said, if you're aiming 1 inch away and you're getting center contact right now, you keep doing that until you stop getting center contact, until you actually start moving toward the right direction. If you get to where you're actually trying to hit the ball in the part of the face where you're actually hitting the ball in the part of the face where you're trying to, at that point, then you can ease off of that and go back more to just trying to hit it off the center of the face, or you can ease off of it to not do it quite as much. So you're just the amount of time. There's no amount of time. It's not like after one round you can go right back to what you were doing before. You keep doing it until it actually changes to something else. So, like I said, that could take one swing. It could take 100 swings, a round, a week, a year. There's no telling. It just all that matters is that you catch it in the center of the face, and you keep doing it until that no longer happens on a consistent basis. Anyway. So Bud N says, if you are tight from a previous activity, yeah. So I would just try to do some dynamic stretches as much as possible. So that's like doing some squats, maybe some lunges. You can do some inchworms if you want. Some people think, someone told me to do that one time. And I was like, are you crazy? I'm not going to do inchworms on the tee. But it is actually a really good activity to get you going. Some jumping jacks, help you get your. I know these are all things that kind of make you look silly, but hey, if you're tight and you want to get loosened up, those are all things that you want to do for sure. Doing some toe touches and things like that. Those are also good things to do. Get some stretch in those legs. That's the main thing, is getting the shoulders kind of loosened up, getting the torso kind of loosened up, getting your core loosened up, and getting your legs loosened up are big things that you use in the golf swing for sure. All right. So Brandon S. says, with the season getting cold and not a lot of chances to play, are there a group of drills on the website staying in form over the winter? I believe there is a winter. If you just search the word winter, you should find there. Clay does, I believe, have a video on there for winter practice. But I can tell you just kind of some things that I think are really good. One thing is technique. The wintertime, when you're not able to go play, technique is one of the best times to work on technique. So working on the top speed golf system and things like, sometimes when we're the weather's nice, we want to go play with the time that we don't have. We're not tour players, we don't have 10, 12 hours a day to devote to practicing and playing golf. We want, when the weather's nice, when we have time, we want to go play golf. So we don't always have the most time to practice. So it's hard to work on technique and things like that. So it's definitely a great time to be working on technique. All of, doing all of the top speed golf system, none of it requires you to hit golf balls. You can work on, your stable fluid spine at home in front or anywhere where you have some space where you can kind of do that, you can work on your compression line. You can work on your power turn. You can put the club across your shoulders and work on that power turn and things of that nature. Those are all things that you can do. So that's for you if you don't have any ability to be able to like swing it or hit the ball into a net or anything like that. That's just like if you want some time to work on technique and to ingrain those kinds of things. Working on the Tatsugao system at home is a really good thing. Also, putting. Putting is a very good thing to practice in the wintertime. If you have the space to do it, I can actually show you something that I've actually brought this out in several office hours recently. Where'd it go? There it is. So this is a little putting mat that I purchased. It's actually pretty sweet. So it's just a little, I think it's 10 foot or so putting mat that you can really work on. You can get this on Amazon. It might have been like $50 or something like that. But it's got, I believe, a few speeds, so it's faster one way and slower the other way when you hit it. And you can hit all into these little zones. It comes with a little hole flag thing that you can hit into this thing right here. I don't know if you can see that thing right there. You can actually play shuffleboard on it, which is kind of fun. If you have a buddy you want to work on some putting games, you can see this is 1 point, 2 point, and then 3 points. You got to putt it to be in that area, and then if you've never played shuffleboard before, your opponent can kind of hit you off or whatever. It's pretty fun. It's really good to work on your putting and things like that. It does come with a like a little thing you can put a break in it. It doesn't really work very well. I don't really care about that. But the other things, and it also comes with a little practice booklet. But yeah, I think it's really good for working on your swing. It doesn't take up a whole lot of space. Very, very easy to use. I don't get paid anything by them. I was just looking for something to use in the house that wouldn't take up a lot of space, and I found this on Amazon. There's probably other versions or things like that too. I've had a birdie ball mat before. Also works really, really well. It doesn't have it's very, very similar to how it roll on normal green. You can check that out. Those they have all kinds of sizes to fit your needs, but the one I had was like a 14 foot by 6 foot wide. I just don't have the space for it in this house, so I had to get rid of it. But that's very good to work on your putting as well. So there's all sorts of things out there that you can get to work on these things. So I recommend that. Putting is good. If you can hit into a net, then I would recommend working on speed training. So getting yourself something like a swing caddy or a voice caddy or something like that. If you have the space to be able to hit into a net, it's not super expensive. I mean, if you have the space to be able to do that in your home, you can hang netting from the ceiling. If you have the space like that in your garage, you can do it. The mats to hit off of, you can get those on Amazon for $150. And again, I'm not sponsored by any of those things, but I used to have a setup in my garage where I hit balls. And it worked really, really well. So doing some speed training in the garage is really, really good. Or speed training in your house if you have space for it is really good. Doing the 20-minute distance fix. So there's all kinds of things that you can do in the wintertime for sure to work on your game. So that's what I'd recommend doing. So hopefully that helps, Brandon. But yeah, check that out. All kinds of options and things for you to do. So we got another 5 minutes or so. Go ahead and post your questions on here. I'll be happy to answer if you have any last minute questions for today. If not, we'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time to answer more of your questions. And again, if you're have questions to ask, make sure that you're asking them during the office hours or up to an hour before. So tomorrow you can start asking your questions at 8 a.m. Eastern time. But if you ask a question at 8 o'clock tonight or midnight or something like that, it's most likely not going to get answered tomorrow because I start with the questions that are there up to an hour before. And the reason why I do that is not because I don't want to answer your question or anything like that. It's because I want to make sure that the people who are here people who are here are getting their questions answered. So if you're someone who posts your question at 3 a.m, Well, I don't know if you're going to be here at 3 in the afternoon to see your question get answered. And I want to answer questions for people who are here currently watching and see their question get answered. So, like I said, I get another 5 minutes or so. I may actually go because there were a few of those questions that were posted well before we got started. So I can take a look and see what's going on there. So Leonard S. says, hi, when I do the squat or move in the swing, some instructors I think he's saying advocate, to do it at the end of the backswing, others to initiate the downswing with the squat. I find it more difficult in the downswing where everything happens so fast. So what you're going to see with most tour players is in the backswing, they're actually going to start squatting as they're loading up. So what you'll see with most tour players, if you draw a line on top of their head, you're going to see that as they go up to the top, most of them are getting lower, about 1 to 3 inches, basically. You're going to see some of them kind of remain level to the top, and then they come way down. But most of them are going to be, as they're loading up and going up to the top, that they're getting lower as they're going up to the top. And then in the downswing, they get even lower, another 2 or 3 inches lower until they get about their hands about waist level, until they're getting about right here. And then from there, then they kind of level out. Some of them will come up just a little bit as they come into impact. Most of them will stay pretty level all the way into impact and then come all the way through into the full finish. So really it comes down to you do what works best for you. Whatever method works best for you. No method is wrong, but I think the best way to kind of think about it is to think you got to be thinking, I want to get forward shuffling. I want to get lower and get my body rotating open. I want to be more dynamic in my swing. So if you're thinking about that from the very get-go of the swing, you're thinking, I want to be athletic and dynamic, you're going to naturally want to squat and get lower to the ground so that you can make it a lot easier to get lower to the ground in the downswing. If you're thinking, I'm just going to get my backswing going, and you're just going to lift your arms up and turn your body and not really load up or anything like that, then the downswing, it's going to be a lot harder to get the legs more involved and things like that. Because in the backswing, you already sent the message to yourself that you're not doing that. So I would try to feel like throughout the entire swing, the backswing included, that you're getting your body more involved in turning the hips and things like that. If you do that, then you'll be most likely to be more successful. And I think that's why more tour players are doing that. So that's what I recommend doing. You're getting the feeling of doing that and should work out a lot better. So let me see if we got any last minute questions. All right, good. We got a few questions. So Patrick G said, start swing right-handed player with left shoulder. Start swing right hand. So I'm not sure what you're asking, Patrick. If you want to try and rephrase that into a question, I'll be happy to help. I'm not sure what you're trying to say. So go ahead and rephrase that for me if you wouldn't mind. Norm P says, how often should I be practicing? I normally play twice a week and practice now and then. So that's a question that I get every now and then. Norman, you practice as much as you possibly can. You really got to ask yourself, well, how good do I want to be? How much work do I want to put in? It's really up to you how much you want to practice. So a tour player, they practice, when they're not playing in tournaments, they're practicing 8+ hours a day typically. So, obviously they're doing it for a living. They want to be as good as they possibly can be. That's probably not realistic, for you if you're a working person, but, you have to ask yourself, how good do I want to be? How much time am I willing to put in? That's how much you need to practice. Realistically, if you're looking to get better, you should be practicing probably more than what you play. If you play twice a week, you should be practicing at least twice a week, probably, if you're really looking to get better. Now, you're going to get better from playing as well, but really you just have to ask yourselves, how good do I want to be? You can't practice too much. So you practice as much as you possibly can in order to get as much improvement as you possibly can. So Patrick G rephrased it. So he says, what do I do with left shoulder to start? So if you're right-handed, your left shoulder is going to be going down. So as you start the backswing, see on my left shoulder, it's going down. That's what's happening with the left shoulder to start. It's going down. So I try to feel like your left shoulder is going down like that. See, it's like down and rotating. You don't want to feel like it's not moving at all, because if my left shoulder doesn't move at all, I'm just doing that. I want to get my lead shoulder started. I want to get that shoulder moving down in the backswing to help get those shoulders turning. So everybody, hopefully that helps. Like I said, I'll be back here tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern time. If you got some more questions. So everybody have a good rest of your day, and I will talk to you next time. Thanks.